Have you ever noticed how some people completely change once life gets easier? I'm not talking about becoming happier, that's normal. I'm talking about people who become softer, slower, less ambitious. People who used to be hungry suddenly stop chasing anything. People who once had big dreams suddenly become okay with average. And what's crazy is, they often don't even realize it's happening. I saw a video recently that explained this better than any motivational speech ever could. It was about a stray cat. And weirdly enough, that cat might explain human behavior better than most psychology books could. This cat used to live outside in a neighborhood courtyard. It was famous. Everyone loved it. Residents would film it constantly. People fed it, kids played with it. The cat seemed incredibly friendly. It would walk up to strangers, it would rub against people's legs, it acted playful, it looked affectionate. Basically, it had become the local celebrity cat. Then, one day, someone adopted it, and everyone thought, wow, this cat finally made it. No more cold nights, no more hunting for food, no more danger, no more uncertainty. It now had a warm home, regular meals, safety, comfort. Basically, it won the cat lottery. But then something strange happened. Its personality completely changed. It stopped being friendly. It avoided strangers. It became distant. Sometimes it even acted defensive around people. The same cat that once seemed so warm suddenly became cold. People online started making jokes. This cat forgot where it came from. It got rich and changed. It became arrogant. But animal experts explained what was actually happening, and their explanation was fascinating. They said the cat probably wasn't naturally that friendly in the first place. When it was living on the streets, survival forced it to behave that way. Think about it. That cat needed food, it needed shelter, it needed protection. Being cute wasn't just personality, it was strategy. Being friendly increased its chances of survival. Approaching humans meant food. Acting harmless meant protection. Being lovable helped it survive another day. That cat wasn't being fake, it was adapting. It did what survival required. And once survival pressure disappeared, its behavior changed. It no longer needed strangers. It no longer needed to perform. It no longer needed to hustle for survival. And when I heard that explanation, I immediately thought, that sounds exactly like humans. A lot of people are incredibly driven when life is hard. When they're broke, they hustle. When they're insecure, they improve themselves. When they feel behind, they work harder. When life punches them in the face, they become resourceful. They learn faster. They adapt faster. They fight harder because they have no choice. I've seen people work 3 jobs while studying. I've seen immigrants build entire lives from scratch in countries where they barely spoke the language. I've seen broke entrepreneurs sleeping 4 hours a night trying to make their businesses survive. Pressure can bring out unbelievable levels of discipline, not because people love suffering, but because survival wakes people up. When rent is due, suddenly procrastination becomes less attractive. When your family depends on you, excuses feel embarrassing. When failure has real consequences, people often discover strengths they didn't know they had. And then, something interesting happens. Life gets better. They start making good money. They become more comfortable. Problems become smaller. And at first, that sounds amazing. And to be fair, it is. Nobody wants endless suffering. Nobody should romanticize pain. Struggle by itself is not noble. Being broke is not a personality trait. Stress is not a badge of honor. But here's where people get trapped. Many people escape hardship and accidentally lose the version of themselves that hardship created. They lose discipline. They lose urgency. They lose hunger. They lose focus. They stop learning. They stop improving. They stop pushing themselves. And because life still feels comfortable, they think everything is fine. But slowly, they start feeling something else: boredom, restlessness, emptiness, and eventually, insecurity.
Because deep down, humans need progress. We need movement. We need growth. Without it, life starts feeling stagnant. That's why some people become lazy after achieving stability. That's why some lottery winners destroy their lives. That's why some successful people become depressed after reaching goals they thought would fulfill them forever. They lost the chase. They lost the mission. And without realizing it, they lost part of themselves. Comfort feels amazing in the short term, but too much comfort can quietly weaken your ambition. And that's dangerous, because life doesn't stay easy forever. Industries change, economies crash, relationships end, health problems happen, unexpected bills appear. And if comfort made you weak, life eventually exposes that weakness. The goal isn't to suffer forever. The goal is never to become addicted to comfort. There's a huge difference. Healthy people enjoy peace, but they still challenge themselves. Weak people hide in comfort because challenge scares them, and that difference changes everything. That stray cat survived because it adapted under pressure. Humans are no different. The real question is, once life gets easier, can you stay hungry without being forced to? Because if pressure disappears and your ambition disappears with it, that's when comfort starts destroying your future.
Let me say something that might sound controversial. Some of the strongest, smartest, most disciplined people you'll ever meet were built during the worst seasons of their lives. Not because suffering is magical, not because pain automatically makes people better. A lot of people go through hard times and come out bitter, broken, or completely stuck. So, no, struggle alone doesn't guarantee growth, but hardship does something comfort rarely does. It forces honesty. When life gets hard enough, all your excuses get exposed. You can't keep pretending. You can't keep saying, "I'll start next month. I'm waiting for the right opportunity. I'm just trying to figure things out." At some point, reality says, "Cool story, but rent is due on Friday." That's when people change. I remember hearing stories about immigrants arriving in new countries with almost nothing. No strong network, no rich parents, sometimes barely speaking English. And somehow, within a few years, they build businesses, buy homes, support families. How? Because failure wasn't some motivational quote on Instagram. Failure had consequences, real consequences. That kind of pressure forces growth fast. When you know nobody is coming to save you, your mindset changes. You stop waiting. You stop complaining. You stop feeling sorry for yourself. You become extremely practical. You start asking, what do I need to do right now? That mentality is powerful. And honestly, many people only discover their true capability when life removes comfort. Think about college students. Some students have unlimited support from their families. Rent paid, food paid, no pressure. And sometimes they waste years partying, procrastinating, and drifting through life. Meanwhile, another student is working night shifts, paying tuition, sending money back home, still showing up to class exhausted. Guess who often develops stronger discipline? The person under pressure. Again, this doesn't mean suffering is good. It means pressure reveals what comfort often hides. You see this in business too. A startup with limited money often moves faster than giant corporations. Why? Because they have to. No waste, no endless meetings, no fake productivity. They either figure it out or die. Pressure creates efficiency. Pressure creates creativity. Pressure creates resilience. Sometimes your biggest breakthrough happens because your back is against the wall. You suddenly become more focused than ever. Why? Because distractions become expensive. When life is too comfortable, people often become casual about time. They waste entire weekends scrolling social media. They delay important decisions. They tolerate mediocrity. They keep saying, "I'm still young. I have time, maybe next year. Then 5 years disappear. That's terrifying. And the scary part, comfort makes wasted years feel normal. Hard times make every day feel valuable. That's why many successful people later say things like, "Those were the hardest years of my life," followed by, "But those years made me who I am." They're not glorifying pain, they're recognizing transformation. The broke years taught them financial discipline, the lonely years taught emotional strength, the rejection taught confidence, the failures taught strategy, the uncertainty taught faith. Without those experiences, they might have stayed soft forever. And here's another uncomfortable truth. A lot of people pray for easier lives when what they actually need is stronger character. Because easier circumstances won't automatically fix weak habits. Give a lazy person more comfort, they often become lazier. Give an undisciplined person more freedom, they often become more distracted. Give someone with no purpose unlimited comfort, they often become miserable. Why? Because humans need meaningful struggle. We need something worth chasing, something that demands growth, something that forces discipline. Without that, life starts feeling empty. That's why retired people sometimes become depressed after leaving careers. That's why rich kids sometimes struggle with purpose. That's why people who suddenly make it can still feel lost. The problem wasn't lack of comfort. The problem was lack of mission. And this is where many people misunderstand success. They think success means reaching a point where life becomes permanently easy. No stress, no pressure, no responsibility, just endless relaxation. That sounds nice for maybe 2 weeks, then reality kicks in. Humans are built to move, to build, to solve, to create, to improve. Permanent comfort sounds like heaven, but for many people, it becomes psychological death. That's why you should stop asking, "How do I avoid all pressure?" and start asking, "How do I use pressure to become stronger?" Because life will bring pressure either way. You can use it to evolve or let it break you. And sometimes the hardest chapter of your life is secretly building the strongest version of you. You just can't see it yet. The scary thing about comfort is that it usually doesn't ruin your life overnight. It's not dramatic. It doesn't show up like some movie scene where everything suddenly falls apart. You don't wake up one morning completely broke. You don't instantly become unsuccessful. You don't suddenly lose all your discipline in one day. That's why comfort is dangerous. It destroys people slowly, quietly, almost politely. First, you tell yourself you deserve a break. And honestly, sometimes you do. You worked hard, you survived difficult seasons, you sacrificed a lot. Rest is necessary, recovery matters. But what starts as temporary rest can quietly become a permanent lifestyle. That's where things get dangerous. You stop waking up early, then you stop working out, then you stop reading, then you stop learning new skills, then you stop taking risks, then you stop challenging yourself. And because none of this feels dramatic, you don't notice the decline. It feels harmless. You say things like, "I'm just relaxing. I'll get serious again next month. I need to enjoy life too. I've already worked hard enough." Sounds reasonable, until months become years, and years become regret. That's how ambition dies, not through failure, through comfort. I've seen people get stable jobs and completely stop growing. At first, they're excited. Regular paycheck, benefits, a predictable schedule, less stress. And again, there's nothing wrong with stability. Stability is great. The problem starts when stability becomes complacency. 5 years later, they're making roughly the same money. Their skills haven't improved. Their confidence is lower. Their dreams got smaller. and they secretly feel trapped. But from the outside, everything looks fine. That's what makes this so dangerous. Comfort creates invisible decline. No one notices until it's too late. You see this with health, too. Nobody becomes unhealthy after one burger. It happens gradually. Skipping one workout, eating poorly just this weekend, sleeping late every night, ignoring small warning signs. Then one day, people look in the mirror and wonder what happened. The same thing happens financially. One unnecessary expense becomes a habit. One lazy year becomes multiple years. One missed opportunity becomes a lifestyle of hesitation. Then suddenly, people feel stuck, and they blame bad luck. Sometimes bad luck is real, but often people were slowly drifting for years, and comfort made drifting feel normal. Social media makes this even worse, because now comfort has unlimited entertainment. You can spend entire weekends scrolling, watching other people succeed, watching podcasts, watching motivational content, watching productivity videos, and still build nothing yourself. That's modern comfort. You can feel productive without actually doing productive things. That trap is brutal. And here's the irony. The more people avoid discomfort, the harder normal challenges begin to feel. Sending one email feels stressful. Going to the gym feels impossible. Starting a business feels terrifying. Having difficult conversations feels overwhelming. Why? Because comfort lowers your tolerance for discomfort. Your mental muscles get weaker. It's like sitting in bed for months and expecting to suddenly run a marathon. It doesn't work. Discomfort tolerance works the same way. You either train it or you lose it. And this applies to relationships too. Some people stay in comfortable but dead relationships because leaving feels scary. Some stay in jobs they hate because change feels risky. Some stay in cities they've outgrown because moving feels uncomfortable. Temporary discomfort could improve their lives, but comfort keeps them trapped. That's why so many people stay average. Average feels safe, predictable, low risk, low pressure. But average often comes with hidden regret. And regret hits hardest later, when you realize you had talent, you had opportunities, you had time, but you chose convenience repeatedly. That realization hurts. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Your comfort zone is not protecting you. It's training you to settle. There's a huge difference. Comfort should be a place you visit, not a place you permanently live. Rest should help you recharge, not help you disappear. And the most dangerous sentence someone can say is, "This is good enough." Sometimes good enough is wisdom, but sometimes it's fear wearing a peaceful mask. And deep down, most people know which one they're choosing. Because your future usually reflects your daily standards, and comfort has a very sneaky way of lowering those standards without your permission. That's how ambition dies, quietly, slowly, while you think everything is fine.
A lot of people think confidence comes from external things: money, looks, status, followers, a fancy car, a high-paying job, a relationship. And sure, those things might give you temporary confidence, but temporary confidence is fragile. The moment those things disappear, your confidence disappears with them. Real confidence is built differently. Real confidence comes from evidence. It comes from repeatedly proving to yourself that you can handle difficult things. That's why confidence and growth are deeply connected. And this is exactly why people often feel worse when they've been comfortable for too long. At first, comfort feels relaxing. No pressure, no deadlines, no serious challenges. No uncomfortable risks. Sounds amazing, right? For a while, yes. But then something strange happens. You start feeling mentally weaker. You procrastinate more. You overthink simple decisions. You start doubting yourself. Small tasks begin to feel overwhelming, and you don't understand why. You tell yourself, "Why am I feeling anxious? My life isn't even that hard." That's exactly the problem. Your life may not be hard enough to force growth. And without growth, confidence starts disappearing. Because deep down, you know when you're avoiding your potential. You know when you've been lazy. You know when you keep delaying important goals. You know you're capable of more. And that internal conflict slowly destroys self-respect. That's what many people confuse with low confidence. It's often not insecurity about appearance. It's disappointment in themselves. Think about how good you feel after doing something difficult, finishing a tough workout, starting a business project, learning a difficult skill, having a hard conversation, passing an exam, speaking in public. Even if you're nervous during the process, afterward you feel stronger. Why? Because action creates proof. Proof creates confidence. That's real confidence, not fake affirmations, not standing in front of a mirror repeating, "I am powerful." That might help a little, but your brain wants evidence. Your brain asks, "Okay, where's the proof?" And if your recent life is full of avoidance, your brain remembers that too. You said you'd start that business. You didn't. You said you'd lose weight. You didn't. You said you'd save money. You didn't. You said you'd quit procrastinating. You didn't. After enough broken promises to yourself, your confidence naturally drops because trust in yourself starts collapsing. And self-trust is everything. Without it, even simple goals feel impossible. That's why disciplined people often appear more confident. It's not magic. They simply trust themselves more. When they say they'll do something, they usually do it. That creates internal stability. Meanwhile, people stuck in comfort often lose that trust. They keep negotiating with themselves. "I'll do it tomorrow, next week, after things calm down." And tomorrow keeps moving. Then years pass, and they wonder why they feel insecure. This also explains why successful people sometimes become depressed after retirement. Their identity was tied to challenge. Their confidence came from solving problems. Then suddenly, life becomes too easy, too slow, too predictable, and they feel lost. Because humans need meaningful effort. We need reasons to rise. We need challenges that remind us we're alive. Without challenge, life can start feeling emotionally flat. And flatness often turns into anxiety, then depression, then self-doubt. That's why people often feel happiest when they're progressing towards something meaningful, not necessarily when they've already achieved it. The pursuit creates energy. The mission creates purpose. The growth creates confidence. And no, this doesn't mean you need to become a workaholic. It doesn't mean your life should be constant stress. It means you need some form of challenge, something that stretches you, something that scares you a little, something that forces you to level up. Because confidence isn't built in comfort. Confidence is built when you repeatedly survive things you once thought you couldn't handle. That's how people become mentally strong. That's how people rebuild self-respect. And that's how people stop feeling weak in comfortable lives. Not by chasing more comfort, but by earning new confidence through growth. This is where a lot of people completely lie to themselves. And honestly, society helps them do it. People love using peaceful-sounding words to hide uncomfortable truths. They'll say things like, "I'm just not that ambitious. I don't care about money. I want a simple life. I'm very laid back. I'm choosing peace." And sometimes that's completely true. But sometimes that's just fear dressed up as wisdom. And there's a massive difference between the two. Real peace and fake peace can look similar on the outside, but internally, They come from completely different places. Let me explain. Real peace usually comes after capability. You've built something, you've competed, you've experienced pressure, you've proven to yourself that you can survive difficult things. Maybe you built wealth, maybe you created a business, maybe you developed valuable skills, maybe you fought your way through difficult seasons, and after all that, you decide, you know what, I don't need endless chasing anymore. That's real detachment. That's powerful because it comes from choice. You know you can compete. You simply choose not to make competition your entire identity. That's freedom. That's someone who can walk away from the game because they understand the game. But fake peace? That's very different. Fake peace often sounds spiritual, but it's actually avoidance. Someone wants to start a business, but they're scared of failing. So they say, I don't care about money anyway. Someone wants to get in shape, but discipline feels hard. So they say, I love myself the way I am. Someone wants to pursue a dream, but rejection feels terrifying. So they say, I'm happy with less. Again, sometimes people genuinely want less. That's valid. But many people are secretly settling because trying feels risky. And instead of admitting fear, they create philosophical excuses. That's dangerous, because fake peace feels emotionally comfortable. It protects the ego. If you never try, you never fail publicly. If you lower your goals, you never face disappointment. If you act like ambition is beneath you, you never have to test yourself. That's convenient. But eventually, reality catches up. You start seeing peers move forward. You see people building businesses, buying homes, improving their health, creating families, learning new skills, taking risks. And even if you pretend not to care, deep down you may feel resentment. Not because they succeeded, but because they acted while you hid. That regret can be brutal. And this idea shows up a lot online now. People romanticize doing nothing. Quit the rat race, move to the beach, work as little as possible, reject hustle culture. And again, some criticism of toxic hustle culture is valid. Burnout is real. Working yourself into misery is not success. But rejecting discipline entirely creates another problem. You become passive, and passive people often lose control over their lives. Bills still come, emergencies still happen, competition still exists. The economy doesn't care that you want peace. Your responsibilities don't disappear because you want soft living. That's reality. Real freedom requires strength, financial strength, emotional strength, mental strength, skill strength. Without strength, what people call peace is often dependency. You're dependent on others, dependent on luck, dependent on circumstances staying favorable. That's fragile. True freedom is powerful because it gives you options. You can leave bad jobs. You can leave toxic relationships. You can handle emergencies. You can protect your family. You can choose slower living from a position of strength. That's completely different. And that's why weak people often romanticize comfort. Strong people can actually afford peace. Weak people often just rename avoidance. That might sound harsh, but it's honest, and honesty changes lives. So ask yourself, am I genuinely choosing peace, or am I using peace to avoid becoming stronger? That question can completely change your future.
Here's the biggest mistake people make. They wait for life to force them to grow. They wait until things get painful enough, until they lose their job, until their relationship falls apart, until they go broke, until their health gets bad, until life backs them into a corner. Then, suddenly, they become disciplined. Then, suddenly, they start learning. Then, suddenly, they start taking life seriously. But by then, the price is usually much higher, and sometimes the damage is harder to reverse. That's why smart people create pressure before life creates painful pressure for them. They choose discomfort on purpose, not because they enjoy suffering, but because they understand something most people ignore. Controlled discomfort builds freedom. Uncontrolled hardship destroys people. There's a huge difference.
Going to the gym is controlled discomfort. Heart disease is uncontrolled discomfort. Learning new skills after work is controlled discomfort. Getting replaced because your skills became outdated is uncontrolled discomfort. Saving money consistently is controlled discomfort. Being trapped in financial emergencies is uncontrolled discomfort. Having difficult conversations early is controlled discomfort. Divorce after years of avoidance is uncontrolled discomfort. You either choose your pain or life chooses it for you. And life is usually far less gentle. That's why the most successful people keep challenging themselves even after they make it. They keep learning. They stay disciplined. They remain curious. They don't retire mentally. Because comfort can make people soft very quickly. And softness becomes dangerous when life changes. Think about how fast industries change now. Technology evolves fast. AI is changing entire careers. Jobs disappear. Businesses fail. Entire skill sets become outdated. If you stop growing because life feels comfortable right now, you may get blindsided later. And this applies beyond money. Relationships require growth. Parenting requires growth. Health requires growth. Confidence requires growth. Everything meaningful in life requires maintenance. Nothing stays strong automatically. Not your body, not your finances, not your mindset, not your future. Everything either grows or slowly declines. And here's what many people misunderstand. You don't need dramatic goals. Not everyone needs to become a billionaire. Not everyone needs fame. Not everyone needs to build massive companies. That's not the point. The point is momentum. You need something. A fitness goal, a business idea, a creative project, a side hustle, learning a language, improving your career, building stronger relationships, anything that keeps you moving forward. Because movement protects people from stagnation, and stagnation quietly destroys people. That's why many wealthy people are still miserable. They achieved financial comfort but lost purpose. That's why some retired athletes struggle mentally. They lost competition. That's why some people feel depressed after reaching huge goals. They had no meaningful mission afterward. Humans need challenge. Not constant suffering, but meaningful challenge. That's where purpose lives. That's where confidence lives. That's where growth lives. And maybe the real goal in life isn't becoming permanently comfortable. Maybe the real goal is building a life where you're strong enough to enjoy peace without becoming weak because of it. That's a completely different mindset. And it brings us back to that cat from the beginning. That cat changed once survival pressure disappeared. Humans do the same thing all the time. The question is, when life gets easier, can you stay disciplined without being forced? Can you stay hungry after success? Can you keep growing after stability? Because that's what separates people who peak early from people who keep evolving their entire lives. Comfort feels good, but too much comfort can quietly destroy your ambition, confidence, discipline, and future. Stay grateful for peace. Just don't let peace make you weak.